Imagine being told that the bottle of wine in your hand might be the same cup from heaven. A single sentence that sounded poetic in the moment suddenly detonated into one of the biggest church controversies of the year. That's exactly what happened when Bishop Hogan delivered his now infamous Heaven and Wine comment, a line that didn't just spark conversation. It ignited a firestorm that spread far beyond the church walls. What began as a simple Sunday sermon quickly turned into a nationwide debate, revealing pressure points inside the modern church that most people never talk about. But to understand how one sentence caused this much chaos, you need to see what really happened behind the pulpit, behind the cameras, and behind the carefully crafted image of Bishop Hogan himself. Because this moment exposed something far deeper than a metaphor gone wrong. It exposed the tension between tradition and modern faith, and the hidden burden carried by the men and women who lead today's congregations. It all started on a regular Sunday morning at New Life Cathedral. The choir had just finished their final song. The room was buzzing. Bishop Hogan stepped to the pulpit with his usual confidence, the kind that instantly commands attention. Cameras were rolling for thousands of viewers online. Nothing felt unusual. Midway through his sermon, while talking about joy, fulfillment, and the beauty of divine peace, he leaned forward and said the line nobody expected. If you ever taste a good wine and feel peace for a moment, imagine heaven being like that, but eternal. The room froze. A few laughed nervously. Some exchanged confused looks. Others weren't sure if he was joking or trying to make a deeper point. And then only seconds later, the moment was clipped, uploaded, and unleashed onto social media. Within hours, the internet erupted. One post was titled, "Bishop Hogan says heaven feels like drinking wine," and once that headline started circulating, there was no turning back. The backlash was instant. Some called it disrespectful. Others claimed it was blasphemous. Reaction videos popped up everywhere. Memes flooded time. Gospel bloggers posted commentary faster than the church could respond. But for people who had followed Bishop Hogan for years, nothing about this moment felt surprising. He had always used bold metaphors and emotional illustrations, intentionally blurring the line between earthly language and spiritual symbolism. He believed heaven wasn't some distant fantasy, it was reflected in the moments of joy people experience every day. But this time, even his biggest supporters admitted he'd crossed into dangerous territory. For conservative believers, wine symbolized temptation, not holiness. Hearing a bishop compare heaven to a glass of wine felt like a scandal waiting to happen. And that's when the debate shifted from one comment to what faith should look like in a modern world. For days, Bishop Hogan said nothing. That silence only fueled the chaos. Blogs started posting headlines like, "Bishop under fire," "Church leaders call out misguided preaching," and "Has Hogan gone too far?" People wondered whether he was embarrassed or simply waiting for the right moment to speak. When Sunday arrived again, he finally broke his silence. Standing before his congregation, he addressed the controversy head-on. They took it out of context. He said, steady and calm, "I wasn't glorifying alcohol, I was glorifying peace. The same peace people chase in temporary things, heaven offers forever." The crowd erupted in applause. Supporters cheered, relieved he had explained himself. But critics online weren't moved. Some pastors accused him of backtracking. A well-known minister even said publicly, "We need to stop comparing the sacred to the worldly. Heaven isn't a sip of wine, it's holy." That criticism reopened the floodgates. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about one metaphor. It was about whether Bishop Hogan had been compromising his message for years. And that's when social media started digging. Old sermons resurfaced. Clips from a decade ago went viral again. One message called "The Taste of Glory" featured Hogan describing heaven as the fullness of every good thing you've ever felt, without the pain that comes after. At the time, it went unnoticed. But now, critics claimed it proved he had always blurred spiritual and sensual imagery. Some edited clips to sound more provocative than they originally were. The internet didn't want context, they wanted controversy. Church scholars jumped into the conversation. One theologian said, "His ideas aren't necessarily wrong, but they're risky. If every spiritual symbol becomes something sensual, it confuses sacred boundaries." But on the other side, supporters argued that Hogan was simply trying to relate to real people in real language. They pointed out that even Jesus used wine as symbolism. The debate grew louder, sharper, and more divided. Faith, language, and interpretation were suddenly front-page topics again. Then, Bishop Hogan himself raised the stakes. He reposted an old sermon clip with the caption, The truth offends before it transforms. That line sparked another explosion. Critics called it arrogant. Supporters called it courageous. But no matter which side people took, the controversy wasn't going anywhere. Just when the conversation seemed ready to die down, a shocking twist reignited everything. A leaked video secretly recorded at a private minister's retreat hit the internet late one Friday night. The clip was grainy, shaky, clearly shot on someone's phone. But the voice was unmistakable. It was Bishop Hogan. In the video, Hogan stood before a small group of pastors holding what looked like a glass of wine, and, in a tone much more relaxed than his public sermons, he said, "If the saints can't enjoy the beauty of life, then what are we preaching for? Heaven isn't about denial, it's about divine freedom. God created pleasure. The world twisted it." The pastors in the room laughed comfortably, but once that clip leaked online, context didn't matter. It spread faster than anything before it. Hashtags began trending instantly. Reaction videos flooded time. Critics called the video proof that Hogan's mindset was dangerous. Supporters argued that nothing he said was unscripted. Commentators split into two fiercely opposing camps. Within days, several churches canceled Hogan's future speaking engagements. Religious organizations publicly distanced themselves from him. Even some of his closest ministry friends remained silent, avoiding the backlash. For the first time, it looked like his influence was collapsing. But Bishop Hogan didn't hide. He didn't apologize. He didn't retreat. Instead, he posted a video looking straight into the camera and said, "If truth makes you uncomfortable, maybe you've been too comfortable with lies." The internet erupted again. Some praised him as bold and authentic. Others said he was spiraling. Mainstream news outlets picked up the story. Suddenly, Hogan wasn't just a preacher with a controversial comment. He was a national headline. But beneath all the noise, something deeper was happening inside him, and nobody saw it until weeks later, during a quiet midweek live stream meant only for his inner circle. Bishop Hogan finally opened up, not with confidence, not with fire, but with raw honesty. Sitting alone in his study, he looked exhausted, and for the first time, he spoke, not as a preacher, but as a man. "I never meant to make heaven sound casual," he said softly. "When I mentioned wine, I wasn't thinking about a bottle. I was thinking about my father." He paused, gathering himself. "My father used to sit after a long week and take a sip, not to escape, but to breathe. One day he told me, 'Son, this doesn't bring joy. It reminds me that I'm missing it.' When I became a pastor, I realized people are living like that everywhere, thirsty for peace that lasts. That's what I meant. Heaven is peace that doesn't fade when the glass is empty." The chat exploded with emotional messages. Viewers wrote they finally understood. Some cried, others apologized for misjudging him. But Bishop Hogan wasn't finished. He admitted that ministry had changed him, that the pressure to perform, to be flawless, to meet impossible expectations, had slowly drained the joy out of preaching. He said that social media has turned every sermon into a battlefield, one clip misinterpreted, one phrase misunderstood, and a pastor becomes a target. "You start preaching for applause instead of truth," he confessed. "Somewhere along the way, I forgot heaven was supposed to be freedom, not fear." Then he shared the most vulnerable line of the entire saga. "Maybe God allowed this controversy to humble me, because I got too comfortable preaching hope without living it." For the first time, even his harshest critics softened. Pastors who had distanced themselves reached out privately. Social media slowly moved on, but the impact of his honesty stayed. His next sermon wasn't loud or provocative. It was quiet, reflective, almost tender. He titled it, "Joy Without a Cup." He told his congregation, "Heaven isn't about wine, it's about wholeness." And maybe God used all of this to remind us that joy itself is still holy. The room stood not out of curiosity, not out of scandal, but out of understanding. And when the final amen echoed through the sanctuary, it became clear that the controversy had revealed something profound. Behind every preacher is a person, someone flawed, someone learning, someone searching for peace, just like everyone else. But Bishop Hogan's story wasn't about wine. It wasn't about a clip. It wasn't even about theology. It was about the battle between faith and perception, in a world that judges first and understands later. And whether people agreed with him or not, one truth stood strong by the end. Sometimes a single sentence can expose the pressure, the fear, and the humanity hidden behind the pulpit. And for Bishop Hogan, that one sentence changed everything.